Really, that's all they got.
It's a lot brighter when the screens come up too. I just turned it off right now as I'm testing it.
That one does work. Is that what it is? So, is there a way to turn this one off?
Yeah, you just mute that.
I got that right here.
Oh. You just plug and play.
Yeah, you just have the USB in the bottom right there.
Cool, thank you.
Testing 1 2. Test test. So there, 1 2 1. Oh, it sounds terrible. Hello, 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 hello. Hey, 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 hey. 1 2. Hey, hey. 1 2 1 1 1 1. That's not bad, actually.
No, that one's not bad.
So where's the other one?
He just went out to double check the batteries on it.
Oh, okay. And is he gonna check the battery on this one?
We better check it.
Did you change batteries on this one? No? It does? Okay. Hey, hey, 1 2 1 1 1 1 1 1 1.
Yeah, right
Right?
here for this room. Can you try them out?
Wrong class.
No, I think it's the right time when we change our phones.
So you just hit mute and unmute. I think we're good.
You're live.
I haven't been here for a while. Hi. How are you guys? Good to see you. Hi. Hi. Hi, everybody. Excuse me.
Okay.
Am I supposed to be up there? Am I supposed to be up there? Hi, how are you? Good to see you. So I'm just going to say thank you to you for being here, and then,
Remember that we have people live stream.
yes, I know. Yes, I know. So we're ready. Yeah. All right. Why is no one sitting in the front row?
I tried.
Come on. Come on. Get up here. Come on. Come on. Come on. Ann, you should be up here too. Come on. Very good. Very good. You know why I do that is because I call on folks in the last row. So the far, watch this. Get ready.
Carlos. Anybody that I'm seeing tomorrow.
Now, I'm going to go and talk from the back of the room now. Just kidding. Just kidding. Hi, Dave. Hey. Hi. Hi. Yes. Are the seats that way? Okay. No, that's my problem. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm really glad that you're here. We're going to have a good conversation. I have about an hour and a half to spend with you. This is my second presentation this week. I have one more tomorrow. And I really would like you to pay attention to this. We've done this now a bunch of times, and we've heard from our staff members about their sense of not seeing their role in my discussion and how staff fit into this. So we're trying to get better about this, and I'd like you to hold me accountable to it as I talk with you and have this conversation with you. So if I miss the mark, it's okay that you decide during the question and answer session to say, you know what, Taylor, that you stunk, do it over, and we'll learn from this. So we want to make sure that you have a chance to weigh in and offer your thoughts about this, and let me know if this conversation is working. We'll talk more about it. But before I begin, I just wanted to call Veronica up and just give her a big shout out. She's landed here, 4 months ago? And she's hit the ground running, and I am so thankful every day for her being here and for the excellence that she brings and the creativity that she brings. And I know that she's diving in and learning your stories and learning your roles, and we're figuring out a lot as we go. And there certainly is a heck of a lot of things on everybody's plates that we're working on, especially launching our incentivized resource management system that has to go live at year 0 later this year. So there are just a lot of things that are in play, but I just wanted to have her come up, and I wanted to give you a big shout out, Veronica, for being here, for being brave to say yes to come work with me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My nickname when I was a senior administrator at Texas Tech was the Texas Tornado because I moved fast. I created a little bit of a debris wake as I went. I wasn't destructive, but I got a lot of energy going in the system, and I haven't changed. I still do this, and I'm always lucky and fortunate when I have colleagues who want to join me who understand that sense of urgency and can tolerate it even when it gets a little messy at times. So thank you for being courageous about being here. Okay, let's dive in. And thank you, by the way, for moving forward. I did say, for those of you in the back row, I did say that when I had everybody move forward, that those that sit in the back row get the likelihood of my asking them a question goes way up. So just forewarned. So here we are. I did these conversations when I first got here. They were called Campus Conversations 1.0, and I needed to spend a lot of time with the colleges, and I had to be very faculty focused and student focused. And I didn't get a chance to have these conversations sufficiently with my administrative units and all of the divisions that report to vice presidents. And so this time around, I've started Campus Conversations 2.0 by having conversations with all of the divisional units. And it gives me a chance to share where we're going, and it really gives you an opportunity to ask me questions that I'll do my best to answer. If I can't, I will get back to you. And I just want to give Ann Peters a shout out. She's one of my brains. Ann, would you stand up for a second? So Ann is here. Most of you know how to get a hold of her. Do we give your email address anywhere in this presentation? At the back, last slide?
At the very end, there's a little feedback form.
Yeah. So on the very last slide, there's a feedback form. We will post this presentation to my website, and then do we provide this presentation as a PDF to be sent around or somehow so that the entire division can get it? Okay. So there is a way to get that feedback form address off of the presentation so that you can provide more feedback, ask questions through that process. It's anonymous. Am I remembering that it's anonymous? Optional anonymous. So if you want to weigh in a big way and don't want that to be ascribed to you, you can do that. So all of these things are available to you, and we want your feedback. This is part of an ongoing dialogue. Okay? So here are my Campus Conversations 2.0. They started last August, and they've continued through, where are we now? April 30th, so this is the one later next week, and they're going to continue through the end of the semester. And the provost and I are working out ways to start having these conversations with the colleges, and they're going to continue into the fall, and then we'll start again and do Campus Conversations 3.0. I thought about doing sort of a State of the Union, State of the University address to the community, and just doing one of these, but I elected to not do it that way. I elected to have these kinds of conversations with each unit, the colleges or administrative units, because I think it affords a more intimate opportunity for a conversation. I think it's a better way for me to connect to the community. So, but if it's not working, you can tell me that. At the end of this, I'll ask you, is there anything we can do differently about this? Feel free to share your thoughts. I also will tell you this now. In every one of these presentations, someone is very brave and stands up and says, I have a hard question to ask you, and it's okay to ask hard questions. It's okay to not be happy with what you hear. I do this little survey where I ask everybody, what do you think? And there are people that will raise their hand and say, this is not good or whatever. So it's okay to have those kinds of opinions. I welcome that input, all right? Okay, so that's where we're at. I want to give a few updates. I have probably been in Austin over 40 days this semester, maybe 45 days. I was supposed to go tonight, but I'm not going to go now. Why am I there? Well, we have about $200 million in new dollars in the next biennial budget period that are at play here. And if I work this really hard and we can realize that, that is significant new dollars coming to the institution. Some of it is in the formula. Some of it's tied to a tuition revenue bond request to expand our College of Business downtown. Some of it's tied to making sure the state funds the backlog on how we match major gifts for research at our institution through the Texas Research Incentive Program Fund. There's almost a $200 million backlog. Of that $200 million, $10 million is ours, and we're trying to get them to pay that so that going forward, we have a clean slate. And then we're asking them to put more into that going forward so that when we're ready, we're going to take the Graham Weston $15 million gift and get it in the queue early so that we can match that on a one-to-one basis. We also have some special items above our basic state funding for various programs. So we have 3 riders that are in play right now, and if they're realized, there's significant dollars that go with those. And by the way, I think we're transmitting down to the downtown campus. Is that correct? I think that's correct. So hello, downtown campus. Thanks for being here with us. So we have all of these things that are in play. The tuition revenue bond request is the biggest request, but they're all important to us. And whether we seek and get new special items, whether we are successful with the TRB, whether we're successful with the TRIP funding or the Core Research Support Fund, which is another $10 million, all of them together constitute important momentum as to where we're going. So luckily I have great colleagues who help run this place when I'm not here, and I know the road to Austin so well now. I go the back way, and the hotel that I stay at loves me because I'm always there, and Albert Carasalis takes care of me, and I know every office in the Capitol now, I think. And it's a good thing that we're there. I've heard that of all the presidents, I get the most, I get the gold medal for being there the most, is what I've heard. So that's a good thing for us. We also, last week, behaved in a robust manner and completely redid how we engage the legislature and the governor's office by what we did for having a presence up in Austin. So we had a massively reinvented Capitol Day up at the Capitol, UTSA at the Capitol. It was great. We went up the front entrance of the State House, and we had our pep band there. We had students, faculty, and staff. We had an a cappella group. We had our sax ensemble, our flute ensemble. Everybody assembled right at the front of the State House, at the upper end of Congress there. And the pep band was playing, and there were senior staffers in the governor's office that were peering out the windows and texting us saying, "Wow, you guys are awesome. Can you turn it down a little bit?" So that was a good thing. But we also had a chance to have 2 resolutions read, one in the House and one in the Senate, recognizing that we're 50, and Senator Joe Bernal was recognized in the House version and the Senate version. And what was nice about it is he was one of the principal architects for the founding of the school back in 1969. So he was in the legislature then. He was a senator. He was one of the key influencers that brought that to fruition. We also had one of our regents attending. This is Regent Rad Weaver. He's a huge supporter for what we do. And obviously we had lots of music going, and everybody, if you had heard the musical performances in the outdoor rotunda down in the new section of the Capitol, you would have been so proud of everything that we do with music. So it was a big deal, and we were very successful, and our show was just as big and bold as A&M and Austin's and North Texas's and Texas Tech's. You would be proud of us for what happened that day, and there were a whole bunch of people that organized it to make it happen. So that was good. We have new leadership on campus, obviously. We have Myron as our VP for Inclusive Excellence. Veronica, I just spoke about. LT is our interim Dean of Students. Kendra is our new VP for Information Management and Technology. And I'm very fortunate that in the last year and a half I've been able to assemble the senior leadership team that I need, and I'm so grateful that the provost is here and Lisa Campos is here. I mean, there are just a lot of things that have been happening to assemble the team that is going to be in place to work with all of us to realize our dreams. So I'm very happy about that. We've also been working on the academic side. David Silva comes to us from one of the national observatories in Arizona as our new College of Science dean. And Ambika Mather comes to us from Wayne State, where she was a graduate. She was the dean of the graduate school there, and she's obviously a vice provost in that space now. Gordon Taylor comes to us from Oregon as the vice provost for academic finance and administration, and we've appointed Lisa Montoya, our vice provost for global initiatives. You all know about this because we've been pestering you for some of this information, but we are well on our way to being perfectly ready to go through the accreditation process. This is very essential for us. We can't drop the ball on this at all. I was very fortunate. About a month ago, I was on the accrediting team that visited Ole Miss, and so I spent 2 days there before flying back to Austin and participated in that process. It was very impressive to see what they've done. I've done this before at my other institutions, and I've been involved at a high level, but this was the first time I got to be on the receiving end of all the information and to see how the institution did about how it portrayed itself. And I can tell you that we are going to be just as ready, just as prepared, and we will do just as well as Ole Miss did. So I'm very confident about it, but it's something that we have to pay attention to. And so when we need your help with that, we're going to ask you to stand tall, because there's still a few things we're wrapping up in terms of getting ready. So thank you for your support with that. This is our 50th birthday. Happy birthday, UTSA. We're going to be celebrating our 50th on June 5th down at the Alamo. This was the original sort of unveiling of the legislation that established UTSA. And we're going to go back and recreate that to the best extent possible for our 50th, and thinking about what might happen 50 years from now when they celebrate our being 100 years old. So we're teeing up the future as we go forward. And then we're going to celebrate, if you were to pick the quietest academic day of the year on our campus, other than during the year-end holiday session when we close the university, June 5th is a pretty quiet day on campus. And so we're not going to be able to have a celebratory event for our students, staff, and faculty. So what we're going to do is take over Best Fest and do a birthday bash in October for our birthday. So there'll be big celebrations on campus. The 50th itself will involve a lot of dignitaries from the governor's office, the Senate, the House, elected officials, and donors and alums and folks that were involved in the beginning. So we're going to do something downtown on our birthday, but the big celebration is going to be for the entire campus on October 18th, so get ready for that. We have a number of climate initiatives for our campus that we have to wrestle with and get on with, and it speaks to the challenges we've had as an institution about free speech, about civil discourse or lack thereof, or about our perhaps poor performance as an institution around this issue of sexual assault, sexual harassment. So we have work to do in these spaces, and the best way to do that is to confront them and tackle them and get on with the business of changing our culture. And so we're going to do that in a number of ways. One of them is the effort that's being headed up by our interim dean of students, L.T. Robinson, around preventing sexual assault and misconduct, and we're working towards this notion of increasing an understanding about what is consent, about improving the situation that happens when alcohol is involved and consent is not understood. We want to tackle that. We want to get bystanders involved to intervene and help prevent these kinds of things from happening. We want to get on with the business of assembling our data correctly so that we can portray it and share it with everybody. And so we have just work to do in this space. There's training that's involved. One of the big things that we're going to be doing is having a much bigger focus on training about this during orientation for new students coming here, because that's the first best place and the best time that we have to get access to these individuals so that we can start the process of understanding why this is important and why we have to have zero tolerance for this. We're also, when are we launching this, Ann, today or tomorrow? tomorrow, we're going to launch this respectful discourse effort that's going to be headed up by our Dean of the Libraries, Dean Hendricks. And if you talk to our students, they'll tell you this. We understand why free speech is important. First Amendment is important. We understand why you have to advocate for it. We don't like some of the free speech. Depending on your political persuasion, you can get a lot of students to say, it's independent of politics. They'll tell you, we understand this, but we don't like this form of free speech. We can't stand this form of free speech, but we know that you have to support free speech on campus, and that's not going to change. We have to do that. What we can do is, and what the students ask for, are tools to help students navigate this complex world. How to respectfully disagree with others. How to listen and hear and find common ground if that's at all possible. How to advocate for one's own position in a very profoundly important way that's full of whatever passion that's necessary to advocate for that position, but it's full of respectful discourse, facts, creative arguments, important arguments to be made about supporting positions. We want to give our students the opportunity to learn and practice to do this here on our campus so that when they go out into the real world, they have a much better chance, they're better prepared to do this in the real world. Our role as a university, if you think about it, is to prepare our young people to go out and change the world and make it a better place, independent of what political persuasion might be reflected. And if we can do that and we can send our young people out there to do this, we are changing the world. And I can't think of a higher and more noble purpose for us as an institution than to be able to say, we send our young people out to make a difference in the world. And part of that is to give them the tools to be able to do that. And so that's where we have to go with this. So hence the big focus. We're also needing to become a more diverse institution, both at the faculty level, at the administration level, and at the staff level. And so how we work on this and how we advance this important foundation of being an inclusively excellent institution is really important. In some ways, it's foundational to what we can be going forward. It's one of our great strengths. And if we use this as a great strength and advocate for it, we can be exemplary about this idea of inclusive excellence. So it's something we're going to be working on across the board. Okay, here's where I'd like you to quiz me now, grade me on this. And I want to make sure I'm speaking to you and we have a chance to talk about this, about why staff are so critical to where we're going. Let me be very frank about it. If all of the staff decided tomorrow to not come to school, what would happen? Where would we go? We wouldn't go anywhere. We would not go anywhere. In some ways, you are the glue that holds the whole enterprise together. And how we create an environment here that supports you, supports your professional development, supports your needs, supports the things that you're concerned about. How we pay attention to this is really important. And what you'll hear me talk about at some point is this notion that one of the things that we want to do as an institution is make this a great place to work at. And if we're doing that, it means we're paying attention to professional development, we're paying attention to issues that come up in the workplace that affect you, that are either positive or negative. We're in the business of wanting to change and improve what it's like to work here as an employee of this institution. So this is an important place that we're going, and let me explain a little bit more why. But I have to get a few more slides down before I can do that. So we had a wonderful recognition of staff excellence at our awards ceremony last week. That was a lot of fun, and there were a number of folks from this division that were recognized. So Lorenzo Sanchez for the Order of the Roadrunner Award, our most distinguished staff award, and the President's Distinguished Diversity Award with Kathleen Carter-Stiggers. So congratulations to those recipients, and congratulations to the work that you do as a division. It's very important for us. We also have this Inclusive Excellence Initiative, and we want to turn it beyond our focus on faculty and turn it to staff diversity, and we want to push that and make advances there. That's going to be important for us. And we want to start the process of listening in a statistically valid way and use periodically staff surveys, faculty surveys, student surveys, but in this case staff surveys, to assess how we're doing. Are we making a difference? Are we changing the culture? Is it getting better? Does it feel more inclusive? Do you feel like you have an environment that's safe and supporting and nurturing? Do you have an environment that supports your professional development? Are you given opportunities to go through and advance in the institution? How do we recognize you? How do we support you? How do we celebrate your excellence? All those are things we want to get from these surveys. And so we're going to use these instruments periodically to measure what's not working and fixing it, making improvements, making changes, trying to use this instrument to be able to say we're making progress about the work environment here. So that's going to be an important thing to launch. It means you're all going to have to answer the surveys, and I know I know there's a lot of concerns with surveys and whether it's anonymous or not, and in some divisions it's pretty hard to be anonymous, and so we have to make sure whatever we use as an instrument affords the anonymity that you may want to have. So we'll work through that with you and get going on it. I want to tell you a little bit about where we're at with regards to our strategic implementation plan. And we started over. We took all new universities to compare ourselves to, and we picked 10. So the 3 that are shown at the bottom were very important to us because they do some things now really well that we aspire to. UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Georgia State University, Portland State University, all are urban located, all do student success really well, all do urban engagement activities, community engagement activities really well. Some of them do research growth pretty well, but they were picked mostly because they're urban located and they all focus on student success, and they have very similar portfolios of students, demography of students coming to their institutions. A lot are first gen, a lot are Hispanic serving or minority serving institutions. So if we can adopt some of their best practices, we have a chance to get better. The institutions above the line are all Carnegie R1 institutions. Remember, we get measured as a research university. Our status in the world is measured principally by the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. And they break up the world into 3 groups, the R1 group, the R2 group, and the R3 group. Amongst the entire R1 through R3, there's 700 universities or so that are reflected, and the ones that we aspire to are above us in the food chain, and they were picked because of their quality of their faculty, the quality of their research program, the quality of their fundraising effort, the quality of their enrollment growth plan, the quality of their ability to capitalize what they do and advance facilities and infrastructure development on their campuses, their ability to develop new campuses. So we picked all of these for a reason. And some of these are ones that are very above us in the food chain. One of them is UC Irvine. It's a member of the most elite organization of research universities, those 60 public and privates. The 60 best, so the Ivy Leagues, MIT, Johns Hopkins, Wisconsin, Washington, those are the ones that are in that elite group. But what's interesting about UC Irvine as sort of the high-end exemplar of what we want to become, they're a Hispanic serving institution and they're an elite research university, and that's something that we ascribe to be. Student success and a great discovery enterprise. So here's some of the things that we're going to look like in 10 years. We're going to be much bigger. We're going to have more faculty. We're going to have more space, more buildings. We're going to have a bigger endowment, a bigger budget. We're going to have new designations of excellence. We're going to be growing and becoming bigger and better, and that's a good thing. And so where we're at with our strategic plan and how we implement it, we've ended up with 3 destinations. And this has been fully and completely vetted with system and with the regents, and it's all based on the Campus Conversations 1.0 that we had my first year. And where we're at right now is that system and the regents have said, Taylor and UTSA, get going on these things. Do these things well, move the needle, advance the cause, pay attention to this very carefully. And the first thing is we're going to be a model for student success. That means we bring students into our system, we get them through the system as soon as we can. with as little debt as possible and with as much learning and experiential opportunity as possible. And they go out and they change the world and hopefully have a wonderful job at the same time. So student success is an important focus for us. And I want to just share a couple of graphs. Part of our measures around student success relates to how we meet the state's goals of 60 by 30. 60% of the college age of individuals between the age of 25 and 34 have gotten a certificate or more degree by 2030. So we are in that business of supporting the state's goals for this by growing our enrollment, because we're increasing the percentage of the total population that has an advanced degree. But we're also working on things to improve what our basic student success measures around first year retention. You come in as a freshman and you stay into your second year, or you stay from your second year into your third year as third year persistence, or you end up in your fourth year and you graduate and your 4-year graduation rate is high. So there are a bunch of things that we've been doing over time, and when I got here we added a whole bunch more, these components and then now these components, and we are targeting to become better than the national average for this by 2023. So we have targets for first year retention, second year persistence, third year persistence, 4-year graduation rates, and 6-year graduation rates. And what you should notice in all of those graphs, it's trending steeply upwards, improving. But there's more work to do to get us to these benchmarks, and then we have to go beyond those benchmarks to continue to improve. But this is a near target, close to graspable target that we can meet if we continue our efforts. I mean, we should be meeting each of these targets I just showed you before 2023. So I feel very confident we're going to be on the move and be recognized nationally as having done great things in the student success space. So thank you for your efforts in supporting all of that. We're also going to focus on the residential experience for our students, and what we're really going to be doing is getting as many of our freshmen on campus as possible, living on campus, and then putting them into living learning communities where they can bond with and develop lifelong relationships with other students of like-minded interests, whether it's medicine or leadership or first gen or honors. We want to add many more of these over the next 10 years and have all of our focus in the first year and being on campus in the first year of getting students in dorms and in living learning communities of like-minded individuals. And so that's something we really want to focus on. We also have amazing students. I can't tell you how talented every one of these students are that I meet. Most of them, when I meet them in the community, they're working. And I ask, are you a full-time student? Yeah. And how many hours are you working a week to put yourself through school? Oh, 20, 30, 40. I never did that as an undergrad. I couldn't go to school and work 40 hours a week, yet a lot of our students are doing that. 80% of our undergraduate students have jobs off campus to work to put themselves through school. Their average debt upon graduation is typically about average for Texas general academic institutions. We're not exorbitant. Our cost of tuition is not high. We're about average in Texas, which means we're low nationally. And the students don't mind the $29,000 average amount of debt that they graduate with when they graduate. And they graduate, they average at undergraduate levels, graduating, in 5 years. Why? Because they're not able to take 16 credits, 15 credits every semester. They do 12 credits and work. And they're serious. And they're excellent. And they get recognized for this. We're about to modify our slide. We're one of the top universities in the United States to send kids to law school. They do really well coming out of UTSA and going to law school. That's a very important fact. We just finished this Truman Scholar annual competition. It's a national competition. If you're an undergrad and you get a Truman Scholar, it means you're the very best student in the country in what you do, about how you learn, how you engage, how you give back, how you represent your institution. And it's a winnowing process. It starts with 5,000 nominations, and it ends up that about 80 students nationally get this every year. Well, this year, we had 2 finalists in the group of 200 or so finalists, 2 finalists from UTSA. We were the only institution in Texas to have 2. Rice only had 1, A&M only had 1, Austin had 1, North Texas had 1, Texas Tech had 1, and Houston had 1. We had 2. Does that sound like a commuter school to you? No. That's a big dog school, right? Do you know what I mean when I say big dog? Okay. I use that a lot. It's so elegant in an inelegant way to explain where we're trying to go. The fact that Peggy and I have 3 dogs give me a little bit of license to use that term, but it works even though it's not perfect. So, we're also going to be a great public research university. This is what the regents really want in addition to student success. And we're on a trajectory to be designated by the Carnegie Foundation as an R1 institution very soon. We'll get into the Texas version of this by becoming a national research university. And then eventually we'll become like a UC Irvine, as I showed you earlier. Our expenditures that allow us to get into the National Research University Fund are on track, so we think that we will meet the criteria in 2021 and be designated in, because it takes a year to be reviewed and then you go into the next biennium, we think we'll be receiving the $10 million of new monies that come from this designation in 2023. Okay, now this is a complex slide, but there's a marvelous story embedded in it. So all the orange dots are Carnegie R1 institutions. All the gray dots are Carnegie R2 institutions. And this one blue dot over here is a Carnegie R3, but there are a whole bunch of R3s that would be plotted over here if we ended up plotting them in our analysis. This is how the Carnegie Foundation does this analysis, and what they've done is they've picked basically 130 institutions to be designated as an R1. And what was our number? 131. We missed it by 1 slot. And it was done over a 3-year period. They looked at data from 2016, 2017, and 2018. I got here in the fall of 17, and so our last year in this current model of analysis was the 2018 academic year. And so that was really my first semester getting here, was the beginning of that academic year. And we weren't fully and deeply focused on meeting the criteria to get into Carnegie R1 designation. Now we're fully on, we're pushing ahead at light speed with this. And I believe that we will end up about here in the next round of analysis, which is going to be 3 years hence. So it's 1920, it will be in 21. So in 21, I believe that we'll be somewhere around here. We already have ourselves plotted based on how we're forecasting our things that we do. It's tied to research expenditures and doctoral degree production, and it's normalized for the size of the institution. But look at where Rice is. Rice is considered a big dog, even though they're tiny. They're at 107. Dallas, UT Dallas is 110. Arlington is 118. North Texas is 106. We were 131, and if we had had 1 more year to pay attention to it, we would have been over here. So we will be in R1 designation in 2021. And who would have thought that? How many of you remember the discussions here in 2008 and 2009 about we'll never get into NRUF, we'll never get recognized, it's too far away? Do you remember those kinds of conversations? I do, because I used to come here and spy on UTSA. When I was at Texas Tech, I used to come here and spy. Does anybody recall that? I do know that folks, especially the faculty, would say, yeah, that was a grim time. We didn't think we were going to get in. Well, we're about to, and that's going to be a big deal. That's going to be another birthday party equivalent. So, Anne, be ready. Okay. We're also going to become a bigger and more robust and efficient institution, and I just want to make sure you notice this, that with a reputation as a great place to work, UTSA actively cultivates the excellence of its people. And that third destination speaks to many of the things I'm trying to get around to about how we focus on our faculty, our students, and especially our staff about where we're going, okay? Part of our strategy about growth and innovation is our strategic enrollment plan. You all may know that, here's an interesting fact, about 10 years ago, 80 universities outside of Texas used to come to San Antonio to recruit kids. What's the number today? It's over 200. What does that mean? It means that South Texas is principally the only place in the United States producing college-age kids for the next 30 years. So that means when you have negative population growth in the Northeast, you come down to Texas to recruit. So Yale and Harvard and MIT are all coming here to recruit students. And so we have to be bigger, better, and our price point has to be such that it's a no-brainer that our students from Texas say, I want to go to UTSA. I'm not going to bother with Harvard and Yale and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to stay right here and go to UTSA. We will get to that state of being soon. So we're prepared for that, and we're prepared to own our enrollment projections and our growth in this kind of environment because we've been working really hard to model all of it and have it figured out. So our enrollment growth is going to go to over 45,000 students by 2028. It's going to go well beyond that, actually. One of the things that we do is we work very closely with Alamo College's district and the 5 institutions there, and we are streamlining the process of looking at transferability and what credits come across and how that relates to the major that a student is interested in. But eventually we're going to get to a state of being where we co-accept individuals coming out of high school that are qualified into the Alamo Colleges and into UTSA at the same time, and you automatically proceed in your academic pathway and you get a 2-year degree after your sophomore year from Alamo Colleges, and you get a 4-year degree from us after your time spent with us. And it's just an automatic thing that you do both at the same time. Now, this won't work for all of our students, but for those students that want to think about this idea of going to Alamo Colleges for free, if that come to being, and then come to us for the last 2 years of their education, undergraduate education, think about the reduction of debt impact that's going to have on students. So that's a big thing to pay attention to, and we're going to do that. We're focusing on our campuses. We technically have 4 campuses. We have the main campus, and we got to change the names. The names are horrible. The main campus, the Park West campus, the downtown campus, and the ITC campus. So we have 4 places where we have things going right now. So I like to steal this idea from Arizona State. We're one university, many places. And all of the places are important for the things that they do. So it means that the downtown campus isn't a second fiddle to the quote-unquote main campus. So we got to pay attention to names, but we'll also pay attention to how we focus on all of this. Part of our success has to do with Graham Weston's belief in us and giving the largest cash gift ever in the history of the institution for the School of Data Science. Part of it is the land transfers that are coming from the city and county. Part of it is Charles Butt's investment in us and what we're doing around urban education. Remember, HEB is such a big player and Charles Butt is such a big player in this space. The fact that he believes in us and Graham Weston believes in us is telling the rest of the community, you need to believe in UTSA as well. These are all major, serious donors, philanthropic donors that everybody else wants to get funds from, and the fact that they invested in UTSA sends a message to everybody, pay attention. So here's downtown. Here are the various places that we hang out. Here's the core of downtown. Here are the properties that are being transferred to us. Obviously, here's the Institute of Texts and Cultures over here. So we are located downtown, and what we do downtown is important to the future of San Antonio, but important to the future of our university as well. So we have projects that are going to allow us to develop the 3 parcels that we get from the city, county, and city. We're also going to work with the city on developing the Continental Hotel properties for housing. We're going to work very closely to develop our Cattleman Square, likely as some form of student housing. We may end up putting this building and this building together and doing something interesting on this property. It's still being developed, but we have a lot of options and a lot of things to work with. And then, oh, by the way, we're also beginning our efforts with the city on the possibility of doing a bond in the next big bond cycle for the city in 2023 and going after funds that allow these buildings that exist presently to be moved somewhere else within the city, and then making these 3 properties available to UTSA along Frio Street. So we're working towards seeing all of this come through regarding the future. So a lot is paying attention to things in the present, but also preparing for the future. So here are our strategic initiatives. And remember, I'm an engineer and I've imposed on everybody. Some of you will appreciate this, some maybe not, but everybody gets the pleasure of having to deal with this when they're working with me. And what it is this. Academics are famous for pulling together a committee, issuing a report. The report sits on a thumb drive or on a disk drive or in a computer or on a shelf, and nothing ever gets done with it. Nothing's implemented. Nothing's put into play and assessed and determined whether or not it did what was intended to do, and it's making a change and moving the needle. So we actually have over 60 key performance indicators for the institution. It's tied to all sorts of different sources, whether it's the regents asking for it, the coordinating board, the legislature, our own plans for moving the needle. But everybody who leads an initiative is held accountable for that initiative, and it's part of their annual performance review, and they're measured by, did they develop the initiative? Did they implement the initiative? Is the initiative up and running? And is the initiative moving key performance indicators and showing improvement, like our student success measures going up, our enrollments going up, is our fundraising going up, is our research expenditures, are they going up? So everybody gets held accountable. Veronica's list is massively long. The provost list is the longest, but all of the vice presidents have the pleasure and joy of having to deal with an engineer as president who believes in project management and accountability and Gantt charts and getting things done and measuring that they did as intended. So we're in this mode, and we do this through initiatives. So one of them is our capital campaign. We're going to launch this later this year. It will be likely a $500 million 10-year campaign. So we're going to get ready for this. We have a lot of opportunity out there. Another is we're going to rebrand ourselves and start telling what I call the big dog story. And we haven't gotten to that point yet. We're working really hard. We're about to tell the world a little bit more about our branding and marketing study, but we've brought in an outfit to help us figure out how best to tell the story about why we're going to be a big dog and what does that mean and how will we get there and what does it look like when we're there. So we're going to start telling that story in a big way. We're working on implementing a very important thing. Remember, the first day I got here, pretty much, I had to do 3 things. I had to stabilize our enrollment, because when I got here, our enrollment had gone up 1,700 students. In August of 2017, I walk in the door, and the enrollment's gone up, like 1,700 students. I said, how'd you do it? Don't know. Did you plan it? No. Could it have gone the other way? Yeah. If it went the other way, what would have happened? Oh, that would have been bad. That would have been very bad, very bad. And I said, well, we're not going to do that anymore. Every time we approach enrollment management from now on, it's going to be, we targeted a student to come to UTSA for whatever good reason. They're good students. They deserve the opportunity to have an education. We're going to pay attention to them in high school. We're going to track them as they come into our system. We're going to get them in our system, out our system. And then we're going to know them and where they go after they graduate and become alums. And we're going to do this very intentionally. So this past September, our enrollment went up 4.5%, but we targeted it on purpose to grow 3 to 5%. So it was fully intentional. And we did that. We're going to do that again this September. And this is how we're going to grow and manage the institution, is by very careful growth with resources that come from growth and being able to focus on that. So the enrollment piece was important. The student success piece needed a lot of attention, because if your student success measures are bad, it means you're not at capacity, you've lost students that came into the system. Every student that fails from a student success measure is a lost opportunity for how we focus on what we do as a university. So student success is integral to financial stability, it's integral to a purpose, it's integral to why the legislature likes us, it's integral to why the board and the system like us, it's integral to everything that we do, but it's also good business practice to do student success. You should understand that more than any other division. And then finally, we needed to get on with the business of completely redoing our budget model, which was from the 1960s. And if you were to look at most of our peer institutions and the top 100 public institutions in the US, they have all adopted this incentivized resource management. It's a hybrid model. You develop it in a way that works for you, but it assigns responsibility about generating revenues, managing expenses, and providing support services to those units that do that. And so it's a bit of a culture change to bring that into our world. Your division is going to be deeply involved in all of this in support of everybody else for this, and we're going to need you to help get this up and running. Remember, we're running in a parallel year now. We're running under our old squirrels hiding the nuts model. You know what I mean by that? Yeah, no one knows which squirrel put what where, but it's out there somewhere, and we don't know it. Versus everybody understands how we're allocating resources, budgeting, and monitoring expenses, monitoring revenue growth, and holding people accountable for increasing revenues and controlling expenses. So we'll get there, but this is an important piece of it, and your division is critical. We're also focusing on this idea that to differentiate ourselves from everybody else, from those 200 institutions that want to come into Texas to all the institutions that are here in Texas, we want to differentiate ourselves, and we're going to do this principally by focusing on the fact that we are in the 7th biggest city in the United States, and there are probably 2 million internship opportunities out there, and we're going to take advantage of every one of them so that in 2028 we can say that at least 75% of our undergraduates have had some form of experiential learning, like an internship, like a service learning class, like a co-op program, like an opportunity to do a service project in support of whatever institution in the cities out there, or to study abroad, to undergraduate research. We want our students to do this, and we want that to be the signature thing that we are known for undergraduate education in the United States. We want everybody to come here saying, I can't wait to do this at UTSA. So that's going to be an important thing. And we're doing it because as we go through our accrediting process with SACS, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, we have to prepare for the next 10 years of accredited existence. And we do that by putting forward a quality enhancement program, a plan for the program, and a QEP. And what we're going to be focusing on is this whole notion of classroom to career, which is all about experiential learning. So if we can put this in place and have, in 10 years, 75% or more of our undergrads going through this, we will be known nationally for being an amazing place to be an undergrad. That's where we want to go with this. We have efforts on looking at how we focus on human health. If you talk to our students, so many of our students want public health undergraduate degrees that are from an accredited institution. We have a wonderful relationship with UT Health San Antonio, and we send students over there to get masters that are in public health that are accredited. And if you think about the opportunity, one of the biggest plays that we have to differentiate ourselves further in Texas and nationally is focusing on human health because of the demography of our community. We are the university of the future right now, and we are sitting in the city of the future right now. And to really, really take advantage of that, we are going to create something that does something related to public health, and that puts us right smack in the middle of a great university, great city, being in the right place at the right time, ahead of everybody else figuring this out. So that's why we're going to do that. We're doing a campus master plan. Thank you for that. Now yesterday this got all sorts of attention. Everybody's like, where's my building? Oh my God, what happened to my office? Oh, there it is, look, I'm on the top floor over there. And okay, so one of the things I want you to note are, this is the Roadrunner Athletic Center of Excellence facility with a covered practice field and other practice fields. This is eventually the new convocation center for basketball, volleyball, and other events. This is going to be, where's the Performing Arts Center? I think it's actually right over here, Ann, isn't it? It's not on the screen. So this is where our new Performing Arts Center is. So the Bowerly entrance is over here, right? Somewhere. Can we change this image and get everything on it for the next version? We can work on that? Okay. But notice the greenway here that ties us to this part of campus down below and whatnot. This is the core part of our campus. So there's a lot of work that's being done around master planning. How many of you went to what did we have last week? It was the open house? Did any of you go to the forums for our master plan? Raise your hand high. All right, maybe 10 of you. That's not enough. Okay. Here's what our downtown campus is going to look like. It includes the development of some of the future properties from the Frio Street property transfer that should be coming. It involves our doing some work in the long-term lease property that we have from TxDOT around the exit ramp off the interstate. More buildings on the core of downtown, but this whole nexus of buildings that are related to the county and city properties. So we're hard at work with this. Park West is also included. We're working on a 3D rendering of that. Roadrunner Village, the southeast corner of campus, we're going to do a public-private partnership about developing housing, livability, opportunity, putting the Honors College residential component there. So that's a big P3 RFP that's coming soon. We're also going to, as I said, put the residential component of the Honors College there. The Honors College is probably the best way to articulate what I mean by classroom to career and experiential learning. Everybody in the Honors College is already doing that today. We have about 1,500 students who do that. It's a marvelous program. It's, in essence, our classroom to career is making the entire university an honors program. So that's what we're trying to do. We're in the business of getting this approved by the board of Guadalupe Hall. It will be an on-campus resident hall for freshmen. We're in the business of finishing the fundraising around this $45 million project for the Roadrunner Athletics Center of Excellence. We're in the business of preparing for future RFPs to develop Cattleman Square. It may be a residential tower, it may be something else. We've got to work that out. Your division is going to be essential to this. We're also working with the city on jointly developing the Continental Hotel property and what we can do to put housing there. And again, these things are required, so as we grow the enrollment downtown and we put the School of Data Science downtown and expand the College of Business downtown, we're going to need to provide more student housing downtown. So the School of Data Sciences is taking a bunch of existing departments and co-locating them in a building downtown on San Pedro Creek, on the property that we're going to get from the city. And it's going to be blended with our putting the National Security Center right next door in the same building where we do all of our collaborative work with the federal government and the private sector on things supporting the cyber mission of the United States. We're deep into this process of trying to get $127 million from the state to expand our College of Business downtown. I'm working hard on that every day. We're working on thinking about what to do with the Institute with regards to the collection and with regards to the cultural importance that it has in the city. These are the two really key things that we need to figure out. So part of this evolution of what we're doing with the ITC is connecting the collection to our special collections in the library where Dean Hendricks is. And part of it is figuring out what can we keep at the ITC location relative to celebrating the cultures of Texas. So we have some work to do in this space, but we're going to be making progress. There's been some activity sort of recommendations coming out of a consulting report that the provost just talked about, and I was interviewed by the Rivard report about this yesterday, and it was written up yesterday. So we're in the process of making progress. And with that, I would offer the opportunity for all of you to ask questions. Who's first? Yeah, thank you. All right, I'll go first. What did you think? Is this encouraging? Exciting? Scary? Scary got the most reaction. All right, if you think this is a positive discussion, a positive direction, you're excited and you're enthused, raise your hand. All right, here's the hard question now. Thank you. If you think this is a bad idea, you don't understand it, this doesn't make sense, you think this is crazy and you want to tell me, raise your hand. Yes, sir, why?
It's empowering, and at the same time, this level of change can be very scary. I think when I listen to the words come out of your mouth, it's beyond bold, and there's an inherent amount of fear associated with that. I think anytime we talk about that type of change, but at the same time, why wouldn't I want to be part of this? What could be more frustrating than just be sitting in that same pedantic type of opportunity? You know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do that either.
Yeah, so I think you're very brave to make that comment, and I applaud that. I'm going to give you a big shout out. Because I'm betting there are other people in the room who are feeling the same way and maybe don't share your courage at this moment about it. They might anonymously, when we provide the link to connect and share information with us. But I'll say this, and I'm glad you made this point. 7 of the 10 peer institutions are there today where we are going, and they started their journey 10 to 15 years ago, and they were in the exact same position we are now. And they all evidenced and did and walked the walk about getting to where they are today. And their uphill climb was just as daunting as ours, and they did it in 10 to 15 years like we're going to. And so it's not like we're the first to do this. It's in some ways, we're better late than never to do this, but that's our purpose. That's okay. We're only 50 years old. Some of the other institutions in our peer list are also young institutions. Some are older, but I'm really glad you made that point, because when I landed at Texas Tech and Texas Tech was trying to get into the National Research University Fund, I walked in the door and everybody thought I was a loony. I walked in, and after about a month I said, here's how we're going to do it, because everybody was like, oh, this is going to take 6 to 8, 10 years. We'll never get there. And Texas Tech actually had more of an opportunity to get in than pretty much all the other emerging research universities. And the big impediment was this big edifice of research expenditures. We'll never get there. And I walked in, and after about a month, I brought forward a plan. I said, here's how we're going to do it. And they looked at me like, even my president, Guy Bailey, who's a dear friend, he looked at me like, Taylor, are you okay? And I said, no, this is how we're going to do it. And then I had to go defend it with the system, the Texas Tech system. They were even more like, yeah. And then every step of the way, I had to prove myself about the idea of how to get there. And what did it take? It took a bold vision. It took a fool like me standing up and saying, we can do this. And then it took everybody else coming into belief about it as they started to see change and momentum, and they saw that the needle was moving. And it's like, oh, maybe this is possible. But no, Taylor, we can't do it. We got to do it 2 years in a row. I can see if you can get it in 1 year. You'll never get the year 2. I said, no, here's how we're going to do it. And eventually, fear or fear of failure is probably more. Fear of failure went by the wayside, and eventually, like 2/3 through the process, it was like, Taylor, you're not going fast enough. Come on, pick up the pace. Let's go. And it was the art of the possible. It was showing that a plan can translate into action, that can translate into momentum. And I think that actually if some of these things start to happen, like we declare Carnegie, everybody's going to go like, oh my God, we can do this. And I think we're at the tipping point for this right now. So I understand your fear. I'm used to it. I actually worry about these kinds of things when I don't sleep. I go, well, imagine if I say that and we don't get there in 2021. That's not going to be, I don't care. I'm going to go anyway. So that's my job, is to engender enthusiasm, engender hope, engender energy, to get you all on board with this, so that I am not doing this myself. I'm doing it with all of you. And we're going to need you. You guys are critical to this. This implementation of a new budget model is going to be hard for this institution. That's a big cultural change. I admit, we are putting in play a whole bunch of different things at the same time, and it's going to be disruptive, but this is what happened at other institutions. I've been through this before. We will get there. We will get there. So, but I appreciate your honesty. So thank you for being courageous. Who else wants to be courageous?
I heard you acknowledge University Excellence Award winners Lorenzo and Kathleen, and I want to make sure to add one more, and that's Jessica Hodgson, who is the Rising Star winner. And on that subject, I would like to know what your suggestions are for improving employee excellence here at UTSA.
Yeah. So if you'll forgive me for framing it this way, when I got here on day one, there are things that I had to address right away to fix. They were tied to enrollment management, as I described, student success, and the budget situation on campus. So much of my first year was pivoting around, completely blowing up everything related, not so much student success, but enrollment management. We had to start over. And the budget model and putting a new budget model in place was highly disruptive. I needed to get those things done. There are some things that fell in my lap as I was going, especially related to the downtown campus, related to an opportunity, a window of opportunity that came because of a donor, a county, a city, and a board of regents and a system who all were interested in something happening. And but if I didn't act in that window would pass me by and not perhaps ever come my way again. So I had to spend a bunch of my first year paying attention to those 4 swim lanes: city, county, donor, and regents and system. And so if I had to do it over, that opportunity might have come in my second year or third year, and I would have been able to pivot to some of these other things that are important. But I'll say this: the 3 destinations that we've selected, student success, great public research university, becoming a bigger, better place that celebrates excellence, is probably the next big thing on my horizon that I have to bring forward, and I just couldn't bring that forward given all the other things I was working on. So what's coming will be a presidential task force on this. There'll be a steering committee. There'll be a lot of conversation. There'll be focus on listening. The survey I mentioned earlier may guide the kinds of things that we want to put into place. But I'm betting generally that people are fairly happy working here, but there's a lot of room for improvement, and there are a bazillion things we could be thinking about putting in place that are tied to career advancement, mentoring, experiential opportunities in the workplace where you get to go off and study things that other institutions do and bring those big ideas back. We need a new way of generating new ideas. We are wedded to some of the most antiquated policies and procedures that are so frustrating to everybody that we need to completely revamp. I'll use this as an example of why part of Destination 3, the third destination's in place. I remember hearing about a graduate fellowship opportunity for a young woman in a master's program, and she needed that to be in place to be able to register and enroll. And what happened was there were, at the college level, department level, college level, there were all of these checks and balance steps that were done in series, so that person A all the way to person 12 had to approve this so that this person would receive the fellowship and be able to go ahead and register for classes and enroll in the semester. And by the time the 12 individuals had approved this along the way, we were 3 weeks into the semester and the opportunity was lost. And she wasn't able to take her classes because she missed the first 3 weeks. And if we had set it up another way, we might have said, are all 12 important to this process? Maybe not. And then could we set up a way to say yes and then have the 12 turn the system off if there's a problem so that it's automatic yes, 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 yes. And the assumption would be that it'd be streamlined and go through and just move on with the business of it, because half the problem was that 3 of the people in August were away on vacation and no one, and so we have a bureaucracy that we put in place that we've never given ourselves permission to say, you know what, this isn't working, let's make it better. And I have lots of conversation with staff where you come up and say, do you know that we do it this way? Why do we do it? And I go, great point, talk to your vice president, let's get that fixed. And we are fixing things left and right, but we need a way to completely rethink this. And your frustration about PeopleSoft, it's just listen to the laughter, is something that's endemic to the entire institution. And the fact that we haven't fixed that yet and we haven't given ourselves permission to tell system to go away, did I say that? Turn the camera off and fix it ourselves and just get ahead of the curve. I mean, those are the kinds of things we need to be doing, but we need to do it at the same time we're giving you the opportunity for professional development, that the annual performance review that we put you through is meaningful, that you get meaningful feedback, that you're given a mentor if you want, and you're given an opportunity to go understand what the world is doing so you can bring ideas back. Those are the kinds of things we have to put in place. And we're not there yet because I haven't gotten around to launching that big initiative, but your boss is going to be directly involved with this, and it's probably going to come out a little bit later this summer or early in the fall. So actually, Veronica's going to lead it. So she knows that already, by the way. So does that answer your question? So in some ways, I'm sorry it took me this long to get around to it, but you may recall that third destination about being bigger, better, more excellent, and a great place to work was put in place to make sure you all know that we're going to get to that, because we're going to be measured for that by system, by me, by Veronica. So Okay. Question. How much time do I have, Ann? I have plenty of time for questions. Yes, 2 in the back. And remember, you all in the back row who I know, be ready for questions. Be ready for questions. It's okay, I'm not going to pick on you.
Hi, I'm Christy Phelps. I'm the director of the Environmental Health, Safety, and Risk Management.
Hi.
Hi. And I want to thank Melissa for bringing that up because I was just about Jessica Hodgson. She's part of our staff. But I was wondering if you could ever do a side visit over to our safety office, especially with your work with the APLU when you were at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
We would be very interested to hear your thoughts and how you did everything you did in that manual because we really or
Happy
try to
to.
be as thorough.
Happy to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we work directly with laboratory safety and the vice president of research, and we just would love to hear your thoughts
And
if that's something you're available to do.
That's
at
a
some
good
point.
example. So it actually, thank you for that point. Everybody, all my vice presidents know this, that if I think that we need to understand how the world is doing things well, I call up a vice president and say, hey, you know what, we need an external review of X, Y, or Z to bring in some outside experts. It could be consultants, but typically it's other universities to come in and look at how we do certain things related to student success, how we do things related to gifts and recording gifts, or how, you know, pick your topic. And so all of my vice presidents have the great pleasure and joy of having me bug them about bringing in outside review capacity to look at what we're doing. So we're always doing really, really good things. I mean, you might be very aware that we put our Title IX program through an intense review with bringing Baker Tilly on board. So, I mean, that's an example of the kinds of things we do. And I don't do it necessarily if a unit is not performing well. I do it because there's a risk that's involved and a risk management aspect of it. And when you have high risk operations, you sometimes have to be ahead of the curve and not wait for problems to hit. It's better to fix the system or improve it marginally to avoid that risk. And that's an example of why I had a review be conducted of EHS and laboratory services. So that review was completed last week, and you're exactly right. This is something I know an immense amount about because I'm a former recovering chief research officer, and this world was my world, and I ended up at a national level having a conversation about developing a whole plan for universities to adopt this strategy, and I'm fortunate that we're adopting it at our own institution. So I'd be happy to come over and visit and share my thoughts with you, and I appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate the work that the lab safety folks have been doing. We had improvements we needed to make, and that's a place where we've done continuous improvement, and it's for a good reason. So if you talk to Ann, invite me over and I'll come visit. Thank you. Another question. I thought I saw another hand in back there. Yeah. Up, over here.
Who's going to be leading the survey? I want to make sure I'm a transfer from a different university, so I have that different perspective of
What university did you transfer from?
UT El Paso.
UTEP. My good
Yes.
friends there, yes.
And so I see things as an employee here. I'm constantly comparing and contrasting.
And what do you think?
It's very territorial.
Here?
Between departments, yes.
Yeah.
It's stepping on toes. And it's not very collaborative.
You know,
And-
you're right.
Sorry. But as a newbie, because I don't know anyone's titles, I don't know anyone's rankings. I'm here as a colleague with you all, and then I come to find out, oh, you shouldn't have done that because X, Y, Z. I'm like, oh, well, back home, I can approach anybody. If I have a problem, I could call up someone and, hey, could you help me out with this? And here, it's almost like, before you speak to this person, you need to talk to this person.
And you know, your point is well made, and I'll answer your question about the transparency on the surveys in just a sec, but let me say this. I find lots of evidence of things where I'll ask a question and the answer I get back is, you know, Taylor, we've been doing it this way for 30 years. It works. Why do we have to change? And I go, well, because the world is changing and it's going fast and we have to be ahead of the curve. And everybody goes, okay. And then I still encounter comments of, you know, it's work. Why do we have to do it differently or better? Or, you know, it's working. Don't upset the system. And I say, but continuous improvement is part of what we do as a university. It's embedded in Destination 3. And I do find places in our institution where everybody understands that and is working really hard to make improvements and adopt new measures and change to affect change. And there are plenty of pockets of that I see that let me know that folks are willing to embrace this idea of continuous improvement. But I do encounter places where, like the 12-step process for approving a fellowship. I mean, that, if you thought about it, you would have decided 10 years ago this is a broken process or not an optimal process. Why not change it? But no one was ever given permission to change it or given the authority to change it or encouraged to change it. And we have to get to that new state of being. And I do notice siloization here between divisions, within divisions, between components of divisions. And it's really up to my VPs to work on that and to control and manage each of their divisions appropriately. But it's also incumbent upon the VPs to work very closely together. I have been at institutions where VPA hates VPB, and VPA's division and VPB's division don't even talk to each other. That is total dysfunction. We don't have that here. All of the VPs get along with each other, and all the VPs respect each other. And if it starts at the top, it should be imbued through the divisions and the components of the divisions, and eventually we'll get there. But the survey will be done in a manner that affords anonymity, but it'll be done in a manner that produces valuable data that we can all look at it and say, we need to fix that. Or, look, we're improving there. So I don't know the specific nature of the instrument. Myron Anderson, my VP for Inclusive Excellence, has administered these before, and we're going to use one that's tailored to what we need, but also adaptable so that we can use it in year 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, whatever we use over time to measure change and improvement. But it will be something that we are not going to sit on. I mean, we've done other surveys out of the president's office. We put all the data out there. But if we don't do the survey exactly right and lay it out right and ask the right questions, we're not going to get the data that we need to make decisions, and that's where we have to go with it. So does that answer your question? Okay, thank you for that observation. Another question. Yes, 2 more.
My name's Maria Sayas, and I work
Hi.
in financial services. I'm actually a graduate of UTSA, and I love the plants. I grew up in San Antonio, and as a child, we would go to the Texas Culture, and the whole downtown area seems to be a waste of space for so many years. The Institute of Cultures for me was a place for going when I was in elementary school. The downtown campus used to be a shopping mall it was like a dead area. So seeing all these developments, it really sparks the interest and know that I'm working with an awesome employer. It's going to be opportunities, for one. And then also the city grows, which, again, expands on the knowledge that we have. And we're going to be very competitive. When I visited Chicago, I saw the Institute of Design downtown in Chicago. It was an awesome image. And I visualized that as the Downtown Institute of Culture, seeing that as a design. When I work in financial services, I see a lot of our students and the music and the arts, and a lot of those components being from San Antonio, growing up and seeing the downtown, that it sparked me to say, Chicago is actually the vision, what I saw. And when I walk downtown, it's like it's a waste of space. And there's a lot of social, here in San Antonio. Social issues and stuff, but when you visit other places like Chicago, it was inspiring. And seeing the presentation, it's a long term. Change is uncomfortable, but change is great. And you got to start somewhere, right? Starting is better than not starting. Yeah, and opportunities, growth. I mean, I'm very happy to be a UTSA graduate. I'm proud to be a San Antonio, and I'm really excited about what's going to happen at the Institute of Cultures. So
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, question behind you.
Hi, I'm Diane Gomez. I'm, communication manager for financial affairs.
Could you repeat that again? What is your job?
Diane Gomez, communications manager for financial affairs.
Thank you.
So I work in.
I thought you said vacations manager, and I was like,
Oh, I wish.
I was like, oh wow, that's a job I want.
Oh, definitely. So my question actually goes completely away from our area of business affairs, but I've been back now in San Antonio for almost 3 years. I was living on the East Coast for a long time, but in coming back, I was, and looking at the changes that have been going on, I got heavily involved with the education of my nieces and nephews. And one of them actually just started college. He's actually finishing his freshman year at Texas A&M Corpus. I also have a friend whose daughter is finishing up her freshman year here. Both
At
of them,
UTSA or
at
Corpus?
At UTSA.
Okay.
Both of them were involved in first-gen programs. In looking at your presentation, I know that UTSA has the first-year experience. Both students, different colleges, have commented to me, and I have probably more deeply connection with my nephew in helping him get through his first year, but one of the similar comments was that when they got into these programs, in the beginning it was great. We're going to help you. We've got this. We've got that. But as they started going through the semester, the faculty advisor fell off, or peer mentor fell off. The peer mentor fell off. It felt like they were needing coaching and they weren't getting it.
Yeah.
And this was from both schools, so I was really surprised.
Yeah.
I ended up.
Is this with the AIS course that they were taking, or is this?
Yeah,
that's
they
our
have
first
a
year
first
experience
year
course.
Seminar, right?
Yeah.
They have a first year seminar that goes through the both semesters. And while there were some aspects of it that were great, and again, I'm sure the two programs are different. One of the things that just kept coming up for me that I see, and I don't know if it's being addressed now, is that there isn't a consistent approach with dealing with first-gen students. And they seem to kind of slack off as they get toward the end of their first semester.
Yeah.
And there's a lack of coaching. And so I've had to step in and coach my nephew.
And your nephew goes to UTSA?
He goes to A&M Corpus. So once a week I meet with him.
Yep.
We have to go through everything that I thought that first-gen program would do for him, and it didn't. And the same thing with my friend. She ended up having to hire a tutor, somebody to help, not a tutor for subject matter, but to keep her on track. And just in the two of us talking about it, there were a lot of similarities. And while these first-gen programs are a great idea, it doesn't seem like they're doing what they need to be doing. And these are just two examples. I don't know if there's a study being done of the program itself.
Good observations.
And looking across Texas and seeing what's being done. But considering where we are, where there's a heavy population of first-gen students, it seems like there should be some sort of analysis going on a deeper level. Because
so it's a little bit, your comments are spot on, and what I'll say is this. At one level, at 40,000 feet, our focus on student success is spot on. It's exactly what we need to do as an institution, and we're going to be held accountable for it, and we are going to become exemplary, even more exemplary than we are. The word on the street, when they see those graphs that I presented and look at the improvements, the word on the street actually is UTSA's missed the mark of being able to tell that story because the rate of improvement is so dramatic. I was at the coordinating board the other day, and Commissioner Paredes pulled up the data from his almanac about how he measures progress at institutions. And he, ahead of my presenting to the coordinating board, he gave a huge shout out to UTSA because the rate of change of improvement at UTSA around these student success measures is the best in Texas. Now, that being said, and that reflects a collective effort prior to my being here and a renewed effort going forward, that will not stop. So there are good things that are happening, and I actually have data from Rhonda Gonzalez in her efforts and focus on student success as my interim VP, where our first-gen students are actually, in some ways, doing better than our average students, our typical student body as a whole, around first-year retention and second-year persistence. So we do know that things that we're doing for first-gen students are working, and that the things we're implementing are actually state-of-the-art and progressive and the right things to do. But then I'll also tell you on the other hand, so on that hand it's good. On the other hand, I've had a couple of conversations with students when I do my pizza with the pres where they say, you know what, President Eighmy, your AIS course here and here it stinks. It's awful. It's not doing that. We don't get any attention. So in part, we have to improve and focus and drive the bus forward. But it also requires that in every component of how we do first year experience, We have to make sure we have the right faculty in place, we have the right mentoring system in place. All of that has to happen. When I presented to the Student Success Division a month ago, in that room were the 300 advisors, more or less, that actually do the advising for our students. And if you were sitting in the room, you would have heard the exact same things that you just shared with me, but from a slightly different perspective of, there are not enough of us, we don't have the resources, we need more help, what are you doing to help? How can you consider growing when we don't have enough of us already? And so that's a place that we have to fix. And actually, Veronica worked with that division to help them realize they have the budget wherewithal to add more advisors. And so we're in the process of doing that. And why we're creating a one location student success center where all the advisors will be under one roof is a very important thing to think about when you think about how we provide these services for our first gen, especially our first year first gen students. So on one hand, we're doing really well, but on the other hand, it's not perfect, and we have to continue to tackle those areas that are broken. And I'm betting that your nephew's colleague or your family friend who's a UTSA student could have been in one of those sections, AIS sections that I heard about last year that wasn't working. So, maybe that's not true, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because I also have AIS kids come up who are having the best time of their life, first gen AIS class students who are just amazed by it and are overwhelmingly delighted by it. So I have evidence that it's working, and I have evidence that it's not perfect. So, but thank you for that observation. Yeah, one more. Ann, how much more time do I have? 5 minutes. That's good for a few more questions. Yeah. Yeah. BIS. Yeah.
Microsoft.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Everybody cringes when you mention that word, but you've probably heard a lot of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You haven't heard the good stuff, and just
Well, I've heard more bad stuff than good stuff.
Yes.
And I've heard that we're not the problem. I've heard that there are issues and challenges at the coordinated system level around a decision matrix that involves all the institutions that aren't UT Austin and maybe UT Dallas having to agree to changes. And if one institution doesn't want it, we need to get away from that. But no, I hear actually that the issue isn't local to us as much as it is the constraint that system put on us about it.
Right.
So.
And I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, yeah. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I was on the project since 2010, so I'm one of the last person standing.
Yeah.
I saw people come and I saw people
And you are a
go.
miracle. But I'm also going to say this. I thought it was obvious and intuitive because every conversation I've had around PeopleSoft here is not about you. It's about the problems that are imposed upon us by this, I don't know what to call it, but this democratization of decision making at the system level that prevents anybody from doing anything and are not having acquired the right components originally, and all the
Right.
We know that you're all working. You're working to the very best of your abilities to make the best of a tough situation, and I'd like to get to a point where we have complete autonomy and control to do our own thing, and then we'll be fine. That's
Yes.
where we're going to. That's why I hired Veronica. So. All right. One more? Yeah.
All of this is really exciting, and I think that one critical piece to the success of this is information, and having the information you need accurately and timely. So I was wondering if you have any short-term, long-term visions or initiatives coming up to bring our information management to a level that's,
Kendra
moving toward
Ketchum,
an
Kendra
R1
Ketchum,
institution.
Kendra Ketchum. So, good point. And it's actually a multi-level problem or challenge or opportunity. I'm not going to get these data exactly right, but I think we have 70 different enterprise systems that involve some form of information management. And not all of them talk to each other, and not all of them have the same robustness around data fidelity and data integration. And so we're sitting on a mixture of systems, and some of them are eminently available to the outside world and hackable, which isn't good. And some of them have critical information, but we haven't figured out a way to pull them into a data warehouse that allows us to synthesize and process the data so it's available and used by everybody. So we are making decisions on some enterprise systems where the information is flawed. Then we're making decisions where we have good information, and we haven't figured out which is good and which is flawed. And then we haven't figured out exactly where we need to go with all of this, especially with the complexity of our enterprise systems. On top of our enterprise systems, we have an IT infrastructure that isn't working as well as it should, and it breaks down too often, and so we have some work to do there. But I would say this, the whole reason why we brought John Sagan into my office and then into the provost's office was to have a huge focus on data integrity and data utility so that we make smart decisions with the plethora of data that we have out there that we don't know what to do with. So that whole effort is coming. That's actually a presidential initiative. If you went to the presidential initiative website, you'd find an area of focus for that, and that's coming forward. And then I'm delighted to to share that Veronica and the provost and Kendra are all working on this integration of our enterprise systems and where we invest, how we put on this infrastructure backbone, our enterprise systems, and how. So all of this is work in progress. We just haven't spent a lot of time telling folks where we're going with it, and that's going to be coming in some of our announcements as we go through the summer. So we're playing catch up in that space too. So if I had realized how many things needed to be fixed on day one on the job, I might have picked a few other things to work on first, but in truth, if I had to go back and do it again, I had to stabilize enrollment. I had to stabilize the financial situation and our budget model and how we are smart about, resources, improving resources, managing expenses, and being transparent about how we do things. And then I had to really focus on basically on our, it was budget, student success, and enrollment management. So those three things I had to fix. But if I had realized that some of our infrastructure, our IT infrastructure, needed as much attention, I would have hired the Kendra Ketchum person much sooner than I did. And if I had John Sagan in my ear on day one, I would have dove into this data issue much sooner, but we're going to get there. So better late than never. All right, I have time for one question, yes? Were you about to ask a question? Okay. Sure.
I kind of chuckled at the Texas tornado because with telecommuting, our office looked like a tornado had hit it for a few months, but we're kind of stabilizing now. And I'm just curious what your opinion is, or your vision, or what you think the telecommuting situation is going to be looking like as we implement all of these strategic initiatives.
There is great utility. I telecommute. No one calls it that, but I do. And there are a lot of forcing functions, traffic, family life, all the things that are out there. But I work more remotely because, look at my semester. I'm not here. I'm in Austin. What do? I'm online. I work. I have meetings online. I teleconference. I go to meeting on. I do that all the time now. And I think that the nimble organizations of the world, especially in the private sector, will have figured out or have already figured out the balance between telecommuting and the essential importance of having face-to-face meetings at the frequency and at the level required to make sure that the team or the division is cohesive and understands and feels part of a process and part of a momentum. And I don't think we're quite there yet, but I believe that telecommuting will be an important aspect of how we do business going forward. And I say that only because all the companies I go visit now, that's all how they do business. Out in the Bay Area, no one drives to work anymore. They all telecommute, and they have go-to-meeting, and they and where they need to, they will meet and go to the headquarters to do things together. But no one has offices anymore. Everybody has cubicles that they borrow and use and share, and the whole process of how we do business and work is it going to change? Now, will it become like how Facebook operates? I don't know. Probably not, because we're in the business at the end of the day of being a residential university with students living on campus, and the essential quality of the educational experience is the relationship between a faculty member and a student, and that's a person-to-person thing. So some of that's never going to change, but business enterprises, some of the research enterprises, some of those things don't require you being here 8 to 5 every day. And what I'd rather do is optimize your efficiency and time and figure that out. And I don't know what it's going to look like when we get there, but I think we're going to think about this more than just the pilot program that we have in this division. So, all right, now I'm going to ask one last question. Was this worthwhile? Do you want to do it again? Was this a waste of time? Okay. Would you like it to be done in a different fashion? Me less talking, me answering more questions? Did you feel like you were informed and understood some of the things about where we're going? Was there too much detail? Let me ask you the really important question. As staff members, do you feel like you're part of this whole enterprise going forward and that you have an integral role? No. Who said no? Why?
One particular program that I'm taking part in. I was like, oh, you were in charge?
So let me ask, when did you arrive here?
November of 2017.
So you've been here a year and a half.
Yes.
And did we do a good job of onboarding you into your operation and into your community? And so you were introduced to folks? And
you know what? I had a really great support team. Carlos, Cindy, they're fantastic people. They're there for me to...
Good.
Also, too, Araceli, Anna, they great support team. I'm blessed in that
so
sense.
where are you missing the connection then?
Learning other departments.
Okay.
Just the information. I'm back home.
It's the silo thing again.
Yes, we would get emails of what department ABZ was doing.
And you're like, who the heck are they? I've never heard of them before, right?
Yes, but now here, I don't know what's going on campus. Even when I worked on campus, I wasn't receiving emails on, for example, celebrations that were taking part or student booth days, or I was clueless.
Do you?
Yes. No, but even when I worked on campus.
Yeah.
Because that
So
we're talking about.
let me ask you this question. Do we my brain stopped. Do we over communicate or do we under communicate here?
We under communicate.
How many of you feel that way? Not everybody. I get in trouble. I'm accused of over communicating. Do you read my emails?
Yes.
You sure?
You write a lot, but yes. I'm an
Are they
information
wicked
junkie.
long emails? It's like, oh no, another 17-page email from the president.
No, but what I'm talking about is what's going on campus as far as celebrations of upcoming student days, for example, like food drives, clothing drives. I don't get.
Do you go to UTSA Today and look at that?
No.
That's where we put all that information. Yes. So we do have a not to co-opt this moment, but UTSA Today is supposed to do that, and it's right at the top bar of your browser, and you go look at it, and it has every minute detail of everything that we're doing on campus. It's like a long list of wonderful things every day about speaker this and meeting that and remember to do this. And isn't that what I look at it occasionally. I have people who tell me what I have to do every day, so I don't always go to it, but this is what, isn't that the intent of, yeah, and have I accurately described that it has everything that one might want to know about our community? Isn't that the place to go?
Is it?
Is there room for improvement there with that? How many of you like UTSA Today? All right, I asked the wrong questions. How many of you don't like UTSA Today? All right, what I'm going to encourage you to do is check out UTSA Today and then email Ann and say, this is great, or no, it needs improvement.
Yeah, because like I said,
it's okay.
would like
it's okay.
to go ahead and be more involved with the university.
No, that's
but
a good
sometimes
thing.
It's hard to find organizations that need that extra help. Like, I have time to volunteer.
Have you ever been to Tacos with Taylor?
No, I've never heard of it.
Pizza with the Prez?
I have heard of that, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not a student.
Yeah.
There's an opt-in function on UTSA Today to receive those daily emails.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, so if you haven't done it, please go to UTSA Today.
Hey, let's do a little experiment. I'm a scientist. Would you check out UTSA Today and let Ann know if it's working for you? And then I don't mind if we reinvent UTSA Today. It's there to be better. It's not always static. If it's not working and we need more information available or a better way to opt in or a better way, I get in more trouble not from the question you raised, but I'll go to meetings in colleges where the faculty don't read my emails. They feel like they're inundated by information between their chair, their dean, the associate deans, the provost's office, the president, whatever. I mean, I go into forums where I'm accused of communicating too much. So whatever, that's the life at a university. But do me a favor and check it out and let Ann know what you think. Good. All right, so I've conducted my unscientific sampling of this, and what I'm hearing is that you'd like these forums, you want them to continue, you'd like to have me come back and talk more with you. Is that a good thing? Anybody think it's a bad, lousy, dumb idea? More time for Q&A. Do you have a question you wanted to ask?
I've only known you from your communications, your emails. I think this is the longest I've heard you ever speak. So in regards to everyone here either managed somebody with somebody, so what can you talk about your tone, management tone, style, soft skills? Everyone here has the hard skills. So what about the soft skills?
You're asking the Texas tornado to comment on soft skills? Well, yeah. At the end of the day, we're not going to get to where we need to if we don't all work as a big team on this. And a big team requires a bunch of things. It requires energy. It requires a sort of a path forward so everybody can see where to go. It requires essentially, very essentially, that everybody has a view of their contribution to where the path is going and how they help push. I use the rock uphill analogy all the time. We can move giant rocks up steep mountains if all 6,000 of the faculty and staff work closely together to push that rock. And that comes from having you have a chance to participate in strategic planning exercises within your division. It comes from your being able to work with in your supervisory hierarchy with your VP. It comes from the fact that Veronica doesn't know this, but all of our divisions are going to end up now doing strategic plans that align to what I just presented to you. So you're going to have an even greater chance to participate in how you and your colleagues contribute to where this is going so that you have direct evidence of why you come to work every day and the importance of it. Now, some of it is keeping the ship afloat importance, and that doesn't necessarily translate into a key performance indicator moving, but it comes, it's like if you disappeared and all of you weren't here, this place would stop. So there's an element that comes from that, but I think we can do a better job of having you understand what your role does in advancing the entire institution and the fact that you can contribute to it. So I think that's an important piece. The soft skill piece, I think, I always like to surround myself with folks that are altruistic, who care more about where the enterprise is going than their own personal gain, who have an unhealthy work ethic, but take great pride and pleasure in seeing the institution thrive. So altruism is a very important piece of this, but owning their role is a very important piece. And I did take my senior leadership team off for some personality testing. What did we call it, Ann? What was that thing? Strengths finders. We did do the strengths finder, and it's actually the whole senior leadership team. If you put everybody on the table and you looked at all of their individual strengths, we actually have a collective strength that's exactly what it needs to be in terms of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a lot of this, a lot of that. I think that can be done at the divisional level and subdivisional level, and it's a very, very helpful way to understand who excels at soft skills, who's a driver, who's an owner, things like that. But at the end of the day, I think this place works when everybody has a role and they see it and they know that they're contributing and they're rewarded for it, they're recognized for it, they're celebrated for it. And at the end of the day, the team that does this needs some visionaries, needs some doers, needs some pluggers, needs some chuggers, needs some creative thinking. It doesn't, not everybody needs to have the same skill set to get to where we need to go. But if you're part of a team, how you communicate, how you support, how you recognize, how you celebrate, those are the kind of soft skills that come from the non-engineering side of the brain about project management, and that's recognizing you and saying thank you. It's recognizing you in your annual performance review. It's recognizing you in an email to the team that says, thank you for what you just did. It's those kinds of things. And I like to think that we're hiring people that do that at the VP level and the sub-VP level and at the dean level. It's up to the VPs to be making sure that supervisors and directors have those same ethos within the division. And I think as each of the divisions go through their strategic planning process, some of this will come to the fore and be a good thing. Answer your question? Want to ask another one? Okay. Any other thoughts for the good of the order? Then I want to say thank you to all of you. No, I'm thanking you for all of your excellence at what you do and for being great and for working hard and for caring and for being here. Thank you for what you do. We would not be here if it weren't for you. So we appreciate you, every one of you. Courage too. Thank you for your courage. Are you a believer now? Okay. In a year, will you promise to grab me and tell me whether over this last year your sense of hope has improved? That's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm expecting. Thank you, everybody.